Marketing, freitagmarketing.com, FREITAG marketing.com. Be sure to check out this agency based out of Keene, New Hampshire. I know Jan, he's awesome, and his team does great work. They got clients all over the world, but they really been focusing on New Hampshire small businesses. If you don't know what to do to improve your business's marketing outreach, whether it's paid, SEO, web design, anything of that nature, they are the people to reach out to. freitagmarketing.com, link in the description down below. It's the New England Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. NewEnglandTake.com if you want to check out the show on demand, if you want to be able to watch the video, podcast feed, get it directly to your inbox. Sign up over there. Let's make sure, if we're going to be on online platforms, we diversify where we're able to reach our creators. Substack's doing great work, which supports NewEnglandTake.com. Big thank you to GraniteGrock.com for picking up the program, as well as Concord TV. And of course, WKXL picks up the program every Saturday, 8:30 a.m., right on the broadcast feed in Concord and Manchester, NHTalkRadio.com. It's also where I do the New England News Roundup on the air every weekend. News from Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. We don't talk about those people south of New Hampshire. All right, so last week was an interesting experience, and a good part of this episode is going to be reflecting on some takeaways. I had an interview with Andru Volinsky, former New Hampshire Executive Councilor member, which is an important role in state government. If you're not aware of what the New Hampshire Executive Council does, it plays a vital role with approving funding, and they're part of the executive branch working alongside the governor. It's kind of like a parallel committee that runs our executive branch, in addition to the commissioners and things of that nature. Basically, a commissioner can't be approved as operating without the executive council sign off. So it's a pretty important group of individuals. There's 5 of them on there. Former candidate for governor. I actually was going through my hard drive, so I've been doing videos for WKXL and such for many years, and I forgot I actually recorded in the middle of COVID a debate when Volinsky was running for governor against then State Senator Dan Feltes. And if I remember right, the my takeaways of Volinsky, which I totally forgot about at the time, were very accurate based off of this conversation I had with him. He went into it, so I went for months to try and get him on the show, because he recently had a book come out called The Last Bake Sale. Once again, if you want to get the other side of the story, check out The Last Bake Sale. It's his narrative around state funding adequacy in the state. So he's got a Substack, andrewvolinsky.substack.com, I believe. If you want to check out what he's got going on, anything I'm about to say on this is totally an analysis, in my opinion, of that interview. I highly suggest you check out that interview at newenglandtake.com, our YouTube channel, any of those outlets, because it's really important to get a feel for where the other side of the aisle comes from. It's the reason why I had congressional candidate Paige Boschman on the show. I've had Locally Sourced, which is a podcast, a very progressive podcast out of the Monadnock region on this show. I want to show both sides of it. It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion. I make that very clear. I have so many opinions that I try and get out there, so I try and give a platform, and that's kind of the big thing I want to say going into this. I've pulled a few minutes of clips from last week's interview with Volinsky, because I had some serious issues with it. Very serious issues. Right from the get-go. The reason I'm bringing up I like having conversations, because this isn't a debate program. I am not doing this to have a debate with someone where there's this back and forth, where it's this politically aggressive drive to say I'm right and you're wrong. I try and figure out why people come to their conclusions. And very quickly, the interview with Volinsky, I felt like he turned it into a debate. I shared the interview with a few different friends of mine that, to be totally honest, there are people of the right, but they were immediately like, wow, he treated you like garbage. Like, he was just straight up rude. He was very swear words, which maybe partly because of the partisan nature of of the subject matter at hand, which was the 3-3 New Hampshire tax savings plan that he's got out, which introduces an income tax to fund education in the state. And we may talk about a little more specifics on that as we progress through this, the clips that I pulled. But just straight up on the face of it, like, he was just mean. Like, it's like he was invited to join my show. I worked for months reaching out for his LinkedIn. I tried to get his email address through some mutuals that I thought might be able to get it for me. I either couldn't get an email or I never heard back from him when I did. And finally, I commented on a Facebook post on his personal Facebook page, which has like more than 4,000 friends on it. Like, he's one of those people that use Facebook as a platform and not just a social networking sort of thing, which is perfectly fine. There's especially on the left, the more older players, like Arnie Arneson does the same thing. I think Paul Hose does it. It's a very common thing for people of the left that are of a slightly older demographic that tend to use that platform that way. And he emailed me back, and I was like, awesome, this is going to be great. I want to have a conversation to show this. And I was really hoping that it was going to be a conversation on why our education is so expensive. Like, I don't understand why Democrats view equity or adequacy as the standard for how we fund education. It should be results, and are we spending an appropriate amount for those results? In my opinion, we're spending way too much money. The money doesn't make sense. We're spending $26,000 a year per pupil on average here in the state. That's a tremendous amount of money. And according to the Josiah Bartlett Center, which Volinsky outright called bad data during the interview, stated that's it is an 86 or a 96% increase, even adjusted for inflation. It's a tremendous issue, but let's start pulling some clips. We'll go through it. I've kind of given my preface to how I wasn't very pleased with how he handled himself during the interview. He thought he did fine. I commented on something on another post. A friend of mine, Andrew Demers, had an article that was an op-ed that was picked up by the Union Leader and the Concord Monitor, and he gave a good case for why, agreeing with me, that we need to focus on the cost of education and why it skyrocketed as opposed to trying to figure out an income tax, which is going to shift the education funding to a different place as opposed to fixing the root cause issue. And Volinsky basically said he shouldn't waste time arguing with me or Andrew, which is silly when he had literally just been on the show. And I commented, like, I didn't think you came across great on the episode. And he replied saying, I thought he came across pretty good. I'm like, all right, I guess we're totally not seeing eye to eye with how conversations happen, but it is the nature of having a commentary program. But let's pull some clips and see where we go from there. Do you think our per pupil level overall is okay, is sufficient?
The 3-3 tax savings plan is not designed to increase per pupil spending. It's to make the spending more fair and equitable. It's, in a way, it's asking people to look up.
How do you get... Oh, let me stop there for a second. So even from the get-go, he's just addressing the issue of the cost of education 100% wrong. It's not addressing the cost of education. He wants to tax the rich. He's clouded the narrative around funding the cost of education with progressive hot button words, the politically charged words that we don't need to fix the cost of education, in his opinion, which is a pretty crazy thing to say. He ultimately says it's fine. He does not want to address the issue, and it makes my head want to explode. It's a serious issue, and he beats around the bush. He doesn't really answer my question. He literally doesn't answer my question, actually. He doesn't say we do it enough. He said we need to tax the rich and have an income tax so it's equitable. Okay, all right, let's keep going here. People in the middle in a purple state decide with getting an income tax when it's been beaten down for literally decades that this state is never going to have an income tax.
Yeah, so if you look at the registrations in New Hampshire, it's about a third Democratic, a third Republican, and a third independent. There are a lot of just plain spoken average people who aren't political ideologues, who don't buy into the pledge, um, who are willing to consider this. And quite
So
frankly,
you are sorry, I didn't give myself enough time between each of those clips. So basically, you're a political ideologue if you are not on board with an income tax. Okay, call me an ideologue. I think it's also this false equivalency of a third of New Hampshire voters are independent when literally we've got a majority over at the state house, the executive branch. New Hampshire is at the state level a very traditional libertarian and conservative majority. That's the nature of it. Yeah, all the cities vote far left. You look at your Nashuas, your Portsmouths, and things like that. They're blatant progressives. Keene, for example, too, is no matter what, those are going to be progressive strongholds for the state. But when you look at the fact we had Sununu for 8 years, we've got Kelly Ayotte here running again with an interesting candidate running against her on the Democratic side that I don't think is going to go anywhere. When you look at this third of voters, it's not a matter of that you're just going to be able to get them to sway with your populist message. It's you need to make sure they honestly believe in what you're doing. And the pledge is agreed by both sides. So, like, he outright was quite rude in his comments on Representative Tolarski, House Minority Leader, and saying that she's basically ignoring what Nashua voters should be caring about when it comes to taxes in their state, because allegedly his plan is going to reduce taxes for Nashua voters at a population level, at a majority level. And I don't know if I buy it. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep going here.
when I talk to people out of state and they hear that the libertarians threaten to kill me, if you're a libertarian, I'm going to ask you about how you feel about that threat. That the libertarians threaten to kill me just for talking about an income tax plan. They look at the plan and they say, what? 3% flat with huge deductions? That's actually a pretty modest way to fund education, a very important civic responsibility. And normal people, AJ, don't understand why the libertarians are making death threats against me. So maybe as a libertarian, you can help me understand that.
I'm not part of the party. I call out the LPNH all the time. So just on the face of it, it's blatant political operator behavior. Oh, such political operator behavior. Oh, I'm gonna call out and we're gonna do guilt by association to make you side with me or make you look like you don't know what you're talking about or that you should just be discredited on the face of it. The LPNH is not the Republican Party in the state. It is an activist movement that many libertarians like myself, we shouldn't even be talking about that. I really hate even talking about it because it gives them credibility on the political stage here in New Hampshire when they should not be seen as a credible player in the stage. They are doing their own thing. It's bananas, and we shouldn't take them seriously. And he's literally using that as a way to when I said at the beginning of turning it into a debate, that's turning it into a debate. That's not having an honest conversation. That's using political motivations to discredit who he views as the enemy to his movement, which in this instance is me. I am ultimately, but that was not the platform that as I set it out. I was trying to say, I don't understand what you're trying to do here. Can you explain it to me? And this is what he does. To also say that people in other states think the 3% tax is minimal and nothing and think it's bananas that New Hampshire individuals have an issue with it is also dishonest in my opinion, because it's not just a 3% income tax. He outright said in the interview there will still be state property tax. That'll be the other 3%. There'll be 3% income, 3% property. There will be all sorts of deductions, sure. Means he kind of sort of thought it through from a populist perspective, as because this is a tax the rich scheme, is the entire mechanism behind it, as opposed to anything else. We're still going to have local property taxes. I got him to admit it during the interview too, that the local properties taxes are still going to be able to charge whatever they need. So if Enfield or wherever is still struggling for whatever reason, and they either feel like they have to because of the regulatory landscape or whatever it is, they can just increase the property taxes, and this doesn't fix equity. Because if you're gonna fix equity, it has to move entirely to the county or state level. Because no matter what, there's more money in Portsmouth. And the people in Portsmouth are going to be more likely to say, okay, we're doing our 3 and 3, whatever. We'll still dump a bunch of money into the local public schools because it's honestly cheaper than going to Massachusetts, something like that. It's more just weird political operator behavior, and it's not what I want to hear on my program. A fundamental economic issue when it comes to that. If we're going to be moving to the income taxes, another portion of paying even more money into what I view as a bloated amount that we're putting into currently, for especially when you look at we talked about the per student rate earlier, which has increased 96% over the last 20 years, which is even adjusted for inflation, which is pretty extreme. Bartlett Center.
When you say even adjusted for inflation, the inflation's gone up by what, 4% a year over 20 years? So that's 80%?
No.
So there's 80% of your 96 accounted for right there.
It's total dishonesty and lying in numbers, because no, that is from the Bartlett Center. They posted this, who he also just discredits just off the face of it, because it's the Bartlett Center, which they're right-wing, libertarian-leaning, free market think tank, sure, but hey, guess what? The number is the number, and it is adjusted for inflation, and overall inflation has not increased 4% a year over the last 20 years. That's blatantly wrong and not understanding how inflation works. I did the math, $1 in 2004 is $1.66 in 2024, using my large language model of Grok search. It may be a little off. So no matter what, he's totally off base on every single part of that. I feel like an idiot for addressing it that way. I should have been more clear in how I was phrasing it there. Once again, I'm not built for debate. I was not prepared for this discussion to be going in this direction. But he lied. He's wrong. So, all right, let's keep going a little more here.
The New England states. I think Massachusetts and Connecticut have higher per pupil expenditures.
But that's crazy. It's $26,000 a year is the average for New Hampshire at this point. That's a tremendous amount of money.
It's a tremendous amount of money. How much did healthcare costs go up in business, not in schools?
Healthcare is an entirely different broken model that I've talked a bit about here. I have a bit of a conflict when it comes to
we should have healthcare for all, but you need to provide healthcare for your employees, whether you're in business or you're in a school. And until somebody fixes the cost of healthcare, schools need to keep up those payments.
So you're not addressing the issue. Once again, we're not addressing the issue. The cost of education is unhinged. He thinks the solution, just like any good progressive soldier, is Medicare for all, single payer. The government funds education, which is, I think, a catastrophic way of addressing the situation. But I'm not going to dive into that too deep. It just goes to show on the face of it that this is just a progressive tax the rich as a model to get towards single-payer healthcare. He glossed over that and continued on, but I think that's a tremendous look behind the curtain of what his motivations are with a program like this.
I don't necessarily disagree on having too many school districts, but how much? $4 billion is the total spend on K-12 public education. What percent goes to administrators?
I know it's a drop in the bucket, but when you look
It's 5%. So if you wiped out all administrators, no principals, no superintendents, no business managers, on $4 billion, you save $200 million. Does that make you happy? Is that going to restructure the cost of education in New Hampshire? No. Should it be looked at? Absolutely. Is it something that you lead with if you want to reform the cost of education in New Hampshire? It's ridiculous, AJ. We need to get on the page and talk about what drives education costs. And it's not the administrators.
The
Bullshit.
smugness, just the smugness on the face of it just kills me. I don't understand the when there's a thing where you say someone's name at them repeatedly it's because you're calling that person out. Like if I'm constantly saying, dude, like Billy, why Billy? Come on, Billy, why are you doing this? That's a debate tactic to show that this person is wrong, which is crazy. But he also, I didn't really catch it at first because he just said the 5%. $200 million is a tremendous amount of money when you look at the population of the state of 1.4 million people. $200 million. And he equated also principals in that bucket. I don't even think that includes principals. I could be wrong. I think that's just school administration, which is the superintendent's offices and all the peripheral staff. It may include some principals in that. Principals don't make that much money compared to the superintendent. Superintendents make six figures, tremendous amount of money in many school districts here. Some of them pushing $200,000. I think it's 190 for the highest one when I pulled the numbers from the Department of Education from a couple years ago. So it's only gone up here as negotiations continue. It's that's $200 million, dude. Like that's a lot of money. Shouldn't we be focusing then on building more homes that are of reasonable size so that we can make sure we have more property tax holders in place that are able to do it? I don't understand the focus of shifting to
You
an
sound
income
like
tax.
it's an either or. And I'm saying the Republicans and the Libertarians in the legislature and in the governor's office don't do shit. So let me give you an example.
So he knew that. I want to make this clear. He knew this was for radio, and he's swearing now. It's the only time he did swear, so I will say that. But to swear as a professional politician and attorney on a broadcast situation like that is shocking. It might also go to show how cranked up he was over this interview. And once again, we're not addressing the root cause of housing now. He thinks that we need to still have an income tax as opposed to growing the tax base. Because right now people don't have a place to move to. If people obviously want to move to the state, we've seen the Bartlett Center actually put out some stats on that. It's been like 14,000. The inflow and outflow of Massachusetts to New Hampshire is an ongoing thing. More people have moved to New Hampshire over the since COVID than have left to go to Massachusetts. So where are we going to put them? How do we grow the tax base? You got to give them a place to live so they're not just going back and forth. I've heard that anecdotally from people in the Nashua area especially. They want to be up here. There's just nowhere for them to live, and there's not enough places for them to work because there's not enough property. So this gets a little more unhinged. I wanted to be sure to have this covered in the show.
The state of Maine has a property tax relief program for older residents. So if you can't keep up with your property taxes,
If you
the
can't
state
keep
of
up with your
Maine,
property tax, though, and you're getting
I
to that
wasn't
age, you
finished,
can't. Oh, I'm
AJ.
sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I think there's a fundamental
So,
issue with what you're saying, going with, but go with it. Yeah. Once again, the anger.
so if you are 65 or older or disabled in Maine and you can't keep up with your property taxes because they've gone up and your income hasn't matched, rather than lose your home, go to a more expensive nursing home model, the state of Maine will pay your local municipality your overdue taxes and they'll take a lien on your house. And then when you pass on or you sell the house, Maine gets paid back. It's a perfectly reasonable way to deal with aging in place, to facilitate aging in place. Now, why?
So you heard it here, folks. Andrew Volinsky is okay with the state government buying up property and holding it over old people that can't afford their property taxes and taking it out from under them because you can't afford it. So that's That's mind-boggling, and I was so flabbergasted by it. We ran out of time. That was about the end of the interview, so that's the last of the clips for today. I was totally flabbergasted. Andru Volinsky is okay with the state government scooping up properties under the noses of rich people who can't afford, old people, not rich people, obviously. These are poor people who can't afford their property taxes, which I think I'm very correct. If you can't afford your property taxes, you got much bigger problems, most likely, when it comes to maintaining your property. I see this anecdotally. I wish there were real numbers on it, but it's probably impossible to pull for. If you can't afford your property taxes, I would like to know the state of the rest of your property, because you probably have a lot of other things going on. And Volinsky's okay with state government taking a lien on that property, and ultimately, when it's sold, because, hey, guess what? The state has the lien on the property unless your next of kin has the money to afford to buy it back from the state. The state gets that money or can sell it or whatever it is. There may be some other mechanisms that he didn't talk about on there, but to say that, hey, I'm okay with the state taking a piece of property because you can't afford your property taxes is tremendously mask off. And that's what I wanted to basically say. There's some other things I was hoping to talk about in this episode, but this was the most unhinged interview I've ever done. He is someone that I know many people that are like nice people on the right, not aggressive political actors that are terrified of him. Volinsky is not an honest actor. That's my analysis of the situation. Volinsky is a partisan, blatant actor that does not care about what happens to anyone as long as he can lower his property taxes. And he wants equity without really finding a solution for equity, because he's okay with local property taxes still being able to be as unhinged as they have been forever. He said it's in his program. There's no outlawing of it. In theory, he says, that means if we're going to have this more equitable funding, it means school districts won't have to do the property taxes. Since when has a state lowered a tax or removed a tax? Maybe they've lowered. We've seen that in New Hampshire with Republicans in power. Since when have you seen a tax removed? School property taxes at the local level are never going away, and they're especially not going away under Volinsky's program. This is a prime example of why I don't like talking to politicians for the most part. Unless there's a very niche, and I know that they are coming at it from what I believe is an honest actor standpoint. I had a great conversation with Paige Boschman. I think her politics are unhinged and whatever, but I had a great conversation on the nature of the Democratic Party and the future of it and the direction it's going. But when it comes to the issues, I have a hard time talking to politicians especially that I disagree with. It's a matter of, I don't like the political rhetoric. I do when I have people I agree with on the show. I call them out for their political rhetoric and saying, I don't understand where you're coming from on that. That doesn't make a lot of sense. We need to address it. I've called out Republicans on this program. I'm a big fan of, I do a lot of work in the education funding space, having conversations on this show, because I think the model's broken. And I've outright said that I'm not sure all Republicans at the State House are addressing this from the right angle for the nature of where education funding comes from. But I know damn well sure that a broad-based tax or an income tax in the state is not a popular thing. And I don't trust the state to have a new tax like that. Call me a libertarian, idealist, moron, whatever it is you want to say. I think the system's broken enough without adding in another tax, another possibility of the state taking your property in another way, when we already have a broken system that refuses to address the causes of why it's broken, the cost of education. All right. NewEnglandTake.com. I really appreciate you checking out the show this week. Be sure to check out that site for the Substack. We are on YouTube. Like and subscribe, as well as all major podcast platforms. Big thank you to WKXL for picking up the program every Saturday at 8:30 a.m. I love being back on the radio. It's been a great experience, and I am doing a New England News Roundup that you can get either on WKXL or on my Substack at newenglandtake.com. Big thank you to granitegrok.com. I've got a bunch of messages around this interview, some good, some bad, when it came to how I handled the interview with Volinsky, and I appreciate all of that. AJ at newenglandtake.com if you want to hit me up outside of the socials. That's a great way to reach me directly. Leave your extended responses to what I got wrong or right. I appreciate it. Concord TV, thank you for picking up the show, and we'll talk to you soon.